Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED, Thanksgiving weekend of 2016. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you here today. We're both real estate brokers with John L. Scott in Southern Oregon, and we get together with you once a week here on KMED to talk about all sorts of real estate-related issues and topics. And, well, today's no different, Joe. We, even though everybody's full of food probably, and have been shopped out maybe, you think? I have.
Turkey and cheese omelets.
Is that what you're eating? That's what you eat now, don't you? Yeah.
Turkey sandwiches and
All
turkey
right.
and cheese omelets for days till you get to the turkey soup about Sunday.
Geez. Well, we hope you had a terrific holiday, Thanksgiving holiday, and your weekend continues to be a good one indeed. Today on the Real Estate Show, well, you know, we haven't talked about the rental market very recently. Since the last time Danielle Roberts and Hillary Rufai were with us from Sterling West Property Management, and they've been kind enough to join us today here on this holiday weekend to kind of give us an update on what's going on in the rental market. And first of all, Danielle, nice to have you here. How you doing, by the way?
Doing great, as always. Thanks for having me.
The rental market just is it's just crazy.
It just doesn't end. It keeps going.
They really do parallel the residential real estate market, don't they? And just kind of the way, the ebb and flow of business.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right now it's our slower time.
Yeah, slower time. Yeah.
But slower, it's always busy.
Slower means not quite as busy, I suppose, out of the way. Yeah. Hillary Rufai is with us also. Hillary, a property manager with Sterling West. And how are you doing, by the way?
I'm doing excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Aren't you an Oregon State or somewhere in your background?
University of Oregon.
Oh, darn it.
Let's get it right
Geez.
But I'm a Beavs fan, too.
Okay. Who are you rooting for today?
Well, the Ducks, of course. Are you kidding
Okay.
me?
All right.
We
see
had
what
a big
happens there.
win last weekend.
Yeah, well, so did we. So we'll see who has a big win today. Who knows? Anyway, well, welcome to the show, ladies, and just give us an update on kind of what's going on. What are you seeing in your office every day now? Just kind of bring us up to date on what you're seeing in the rental market, because what Joe and I hear all the time is what, Joe? There's no vacancies. The vacancy rate is 1.8, 1.6%. So tell us just kind of what's going on, what you two are seeing in the market right now.
Yeah, it's definitely, the vacancy rate is still really, really low. Right now it's 1.38, which is,
Wow.
just
It's
as good
even
as,
less
as
than that.
zero. Yeah.
Wow.
Things they're just renting really fast. I would say as far as, tenant traffic, people looking, that has slowed because of the holidays, of course. But, new business coming in, owners, we were talking about how it kind of parallels the real estate market, and it really does. Those owners that are ready to take their property maybe off the market if it didn't sell this last year, then they're definitely looking to rent that out.
Yeah.
So
Now, I think last time you two were here, I think you had one vacancy, I think, in all your 300, over 300, 400 properties that you had. Is it that tight still today, or has there been any relaxation? Is there hope for some people who have been looking?
There's definitely been some relaxation, a little. We probably have about 6 vacancies today.
And what kind of vacancies are there? I mean, are they 3 and 2s? Tell me what they are, just as an example.
they are all across the board. I mean, if you go to our website right now, you'll see a studio for, $675, or a historic home in Ashland, in the 2,000 range, higher end, lower end, everywhere in between. So all over the valley. So we have a really good mix. We're kind of, able to offer that for everybody, which is nice.
That's actually pretty good mix across there.
Yeah.
And you'll probably have those rented by Monday after.
Most likely, yes.
Yeah, they don't last very long.
Yeah.
How have you found for buyers? Are you stacked up again? Are we up against price pressures, or because I know people who have been living in motels, waiting for properties they can't find, rentals, things like that. So where does that kind of all fit into this?
Prices are still high. I mean, for a renter looking for a property, they're still not thrilled with the rental price. Your average rental, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, is still going to be $1,200, probably minimum. Sometimes you can get them for $900, $9-ish, but they're still pretty high.
They're still pretty high out there.
Yeah.
And what about the variety of them? I mean, is there what's popular right now? What's out there that people can
Pretty much anything that's vacant, I would guess.
Really, pretty much whatever they can get into.
Yeah, I think most families are having a really hard time finding, a normal single family home at a price that they can afford. So that's the main thing. Usually when I see, a 4-bedroom or a larger home or it has, something kind of extra offer, those go really fast because they're hard to find. So,
but if I'm hearing you two right, that the winter time, this is for people looking, that the winter time seems to be, and maybe even around the holiday time, maybe seem to be a kind of a good time that you may be able to find something right now. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I think right now would be a great time to look for people. I think that it just, the time of year really dictates people's move. I think, coming straight out of high school, it starts. In the summer, you find your first home, and then your life is kind of dictated from then on. So, but at the same time, especially with it being so volatile, the rent increase law and everything, if people really did want to think outside the box, a move in the winter could be advantageous for sure.
Well, it's like selling real estate. We say you actually get a little higher price when you sell in the winter than you do the other times of the year.
And if you're a seller, you stand out because the others have backed off, and some of those owners have called you and are going to lease for you.
Right.
That's exactly right.
And we tell them that people who are looking are more serious during the winter time than they are just in general. So the same thing would be for those looking for rentals. So this may be a good time if you've been looking to do that.
Yeah.
Now, you brought up, since we also last talked, look what's happened around the Valley, Joe. Think about this. We had a rent protest down in Ashland, over rent increases in rental rates. Okay, never mind.
Not at Sterling West,
be
though,
quiet.
I might add.
Don't protest in Oregon. I'm protesting all the protests in Oregon.
I'm just bringing that up. But we also had, I had a friend who was rented a house for several years, $1,200, got a 90-day notice. It went to $1,550, and you're just whoa, my goodness, what's going on? And I hear people saying sleeping in or renting motel rooms for months because they can't find things and whatever's out there. So I guess where are we with that?
Well, this is Hillary's favorite law, so we're going to let Hillary talk about this.
I will not sleep until I change this law.
Good for you. And I understand that you got to give 90 days notice before you can raise a rent, correct? And then beyond that, what is it? Okay.
Well, there is still a lot of gray in this law, but the gist of it is that you do need to give your tenant now 90 days notice for a rent increase, and that's after the first year of tenancy. So no increases to be had at all in the first year, which is fine. That's okay. No one should really be, jabbing their tenant, right out the get-go.
And does that matter, Hillary, if it's a lease or a month-to-month tenancy for a person?
Well, in a lease, you can't change the terms regardless. So, if you're in a lease, no increases, obviously, until the term of the lease is over. And then after that, you'll want to issue that 90-day increase law. There is an area in the law that is really gray. We're wavering on the safe side. It does state that the first year of month-to-month tenancies, no increases are to be had, which could be after the first year of tenancy. It could be the third, fourth, or fifth year.
Seems like it would be. Okay.
So, to avoid that, we're working off of, kind of just going to the next lease agreement. So we can do that. You can roll into another agreement at a different rate and continue on that. It does take a lot of oversight, a lot of cooperation on the owner and tenant side, facilitating what works for everybody. But yeah, it's definitely a tricky one. And I think that contributes to the volatility in the market too. Owners are wanting to do as much as they can as far as increases go. They don't know what's going to happen in the future. Maybe they're doing a $150 increase rather than $25. So, it's kind of a mess.
It's kind of an unforeseen consequence.
Right.
There.
There's a couple of them. I could go on and on.
And so how are you advised, because we have a lot of our listeners are landlords themselves. A lot of them, have property managers and stuff. How are you advising people to deal with this particular law from the landlord side? Because what's so interesting, Joe, as you know about property management is that they represent both the landlord and the renter, which is sometimes in conflict, and right in the middle of that thing. Yeah. So how are you advising at least this side for the landlords in this issue?
For most of our landlords, we're still suggesting a lease.
A lease, okay.
Tenants are already in a situation where they feel unsafe in the rental market in general. So we find that a month-to-month scares them away.
Sure.
They want the confidence of being in a set lease, whether it's 6 months, typically 6 months or a year.
Okay.
And we still think that that's the best option. you can have them sign another lease as long as your property managers are working as they should be before the first lease ends, or on the day that the first lease ends. You can sign a new lease at a new rental rate and avoid the 90-day situation.
Okay.
And then it feels like it's kind of fair to both parties.
Mm-hmm.
If you allow that lease to lapse, it technically turns into a month-to-month.
Automatically
Then
fits
you
into
wait.
month-to-month, right.
Then they're in their first year of a month-to-month tenancy. So you then are stuck a whole year and 3 months before you can raise it.
Raise it again if you wanted to do that.
And so people who have gotten stuck in this little loophole are probably the owners that are saying, well, raise it $500 now that I finally got my increase. And I think it's making it worse. It's making the rental rates even higher than they should be.
And the stories out there are really awful about some of these increases that some landlords are doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of generating, again, as you called it, a lot of volatility.
Yes.
But the other part that you said, and I just wanted to say, I didn't realize this too, but people who are renting are nervous.
Correct.
That they're unsure, especially if you don't have a lease or whatever, because you're totally at the mercy, aren't you?
Whatever happens.
Of a landlord who may not want you there.
Gone through that.
Wow, that's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really tough one.
Do you think? And again, we have a legislative session coming up, and we'll have to get maybe Representative Sal before he heads up there to Salem or whatever. But it's But anyway, what do you see? Have you heard of new rules? Because I think we're going to see some changes coming out of Salem in the terms of the rental world.
Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping that, at least they'll streamline this particular law just so it's easier to understand, maybe have it work for both parties. I think, like you said, there's a lot of unforeseen, damages for the tenants, almost more than for the owners in respect to this one.
See, and that wasn't the intent of that law.
Yeah.
Remember, that law was to protect the renters.
Right.
Remember
And
that?
it
This
doesn't.
way it protects the renters, but it hasn't worked out that way.
Yeah,
You might
that
be surprised.
and they're thinking about getting rid of the no cause notice. Oregon right now is a state where you can issue a no cause to vacate notice to a tenant. Say your property sells or there's some other unforeseen thing going on and you don't really have you don't need to give your tenant a specific reason. And so they're looking at getting rid of that. So we'll see how that affects things as well.
That's kind of a bizarre. Isn't that bizarre? I mean, because right now, if I had tenants in there and my lease is up and I want to sell my house,
or take it back, move
or
it
take
back
it back
in,
and move
or-
into
yeah.
it, you're saying that they may not be able to do that.
We've just seen very preliminary kind of conversation about it, that they're trying to
without cause.
Right.
Selling the house is not a cause to have someone leave.
I'm sure
Change
they'll
of ownership,
clarify.
transfer of ownership.
I'm sure they'll clarify what the reasons are. Well, maybe they will.
Maybe they may have more unintended consequences from that.
Like they clarify so many
Exactly.
other things.
Wow, that's going to be really a kind of a.
Well, I think
that's
it will.
one to watch, isn't it?
It'll create further problems, because then when an owner would like a tenant to leave, then we're just going to be forced to look for reasons.
Yeah.
To have them leave, and it's just going to be the courts are going to be tied up, and it's not going to be a good situation.
Well, I asked you how you advise the landlord. What about the tenants in these situations? I mean, I'm sure you guys are caught in the middle of this thing, and sometimes it must be heartbreaking, or stories that you can. I'm sure that in terms of increases and how that affects people's lives, then doesn't it?
That's another reason that we advocate for the leases,
Yeah.
because we feel like we're able to be more of a middleman that way, where we can kind of work. The owner has some guarantee that tenant's going to be there at this price for this long, and they're usually more willing to, instead of the $500 increase, they'll go more a couple $100 or $50. Is always our goal is to go more like $100. That's why we work on that. It is very time consuming. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's very confusing. And so, I mean, I can see why some companies have chosen to just do month to month.
It was just easier to do month to month, business wise, but maybe not wise for the people involved.
Right.
Is what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I can see why you would do that. But wow, that's a change in that. I mean, that kind of throws a little wrinkle into that whole thing there. Well, good luck with that. I think you're going to see some changes.
Yes.
And I don't know what they're going to be, but it seems like every in 7 years of doing our show, every legislative session, There's been changes, hasn't there?
In the way the
rental market
There's been material for shows for the next year.
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just
We got our work cut out for it.
yeah. So what's the but the interesting part I want to make sure our listeners to make sure is now in the wintertime, there are activity is less, so this may be a pretty good time if you've been looking and you say I'm giving up for a while because it's the holidays. Maybe you should look because maybe there is out there right now. That's really good, important information to know. Right?
And to your point with the legislature, we've had the Home Builders Association, we have our property managers, we have the Oregon Association of Realtors, and our RBAR Association folks who represent us at the statewide level. And they tell us constantly how much work has to go into the lobbying effort, and being on the radar, having your information involved in the debate and involved in the decision, and getting to the people that represent you up there. That's a hard nut. That's a hard nut to crack. Yeah. It really is. And kudos to everybody who puts that work in, because in the end, we're looking for an outcome that's fair and equitable to all parties involved. And that's a hard solution to find sometimes.
Yeah. And the rental market's a tough market. You know, I mean, you got so much you have to know. That's why I admire what Danielle Roberts and Hillary Rufai do, because you and I say we would never be a property manager because you guys are the experts in this.
And we're your client.
We know so much about it. We're in the Real Estate Show here on KMED. We got a break coming up. We're going to continue. We're going to ask you about winterizing your rental. What can you do to help the landlord to get ready for winter for yourself? All that and more coming up on the Real Estate Show. Continue. The Real Estate Show rolls on KMED this Thanksgiving weekend of 2016. Pete Balcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you. Don't forget, for any real estate information, you can give Joe or I an email. It's easy to do. Pete or Joe at realestateshoworegon.com. We love hearing from you. And most of all, we hope you're having a terrific Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Next week, we'll have a show on Restore Oregon about repurposing historic buildings around our community and our state. That'll be next week, and then on and on. It's almost like New Year's. I mean, it's almost like Christmas. I mean, it's like it goes so fast, man. I can't believe it.
Because we're old.
Is that what it is? It just goes
and
by.
And the clock is ticking on our holidays.
It just seems so. We were just in the summer. Weren't we just having that?
And it's funny, my little grandson Kashan is 5, and he thinks it's so long between Thanksgiving and Christmas now. He can't stand it.
Yeah. Well, we're talking property management here today with Danielle Roberts and Hillary Rufai from Sterling West Property Management. You're pretty good at what they do. I'll tell you that. You guys you got a lot of rentals, don't you? I mean, and not very many vacancies, correct?
That's correct.
Right. Yeah. Which is what you like.
That's the way we like it.
What do you need most of? What does the rental market need? If you could put the magic wand out, because I know that Danielle just got back from Harry Potter's Wizarding World down there.
I knew that was going to come out. That was really a burr under his saddle.
What would you wish for then? What do you think the market needs right now?
I would wish for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, average house, average price.
Okay.
$1,100, $1,200 would be ideal. If we had a big slew of those in our inventory, we would make so many people happy.
Yeah.
That's the
people
big demand for that size, that type of home.
Right.
And around that price.
Yes.
Because once you get above that, I mean, you're raising up to $1,500, and renters, you can buy a house still.
Exactly.
For those kinds of things.
If I won Powerball, I would build a subdivision of rent. I would build 20 rentals there, and just be set. My family would be set for millennia.
Yeah, you would never have to worry about it.
Well, I mean, there does seem to be some relief coming. I mean, there is some new apartments coming up, and I don't see a lot of duplexes still and things like that. And anyway, so in the meantime, the pressure, because the demand is still out there, and you haven't seen that. I mean, I know we're in the winter time period, but ladies, the demand in terms of it has not slowed. I mean, is that what we're saying?
No, people just are at a lull for, doing the activity of moving. Nobody wants to move this time of year. But like Danielle was saying, anything that's affordable, even the apartments, I mean, just anything right now would be good.
That's where the big demand is. Tell me about the upper end, the homes that you rent up in the thousands of dollars. Is there how long do those stay vacant? I mean, or is it where it's at kind of thing? Or tell me about that type of the market.
Those rent too. Yeah, I would say, the majority of the properties that we manage are those higher end homes, on the Eagle Point Golf Course, or in Ashland, or, out in Jacksonville. So beautiful, beautiful homes. But yeah, I mean, they sit for maybe a week or two. It really kind of depends on the property and the price and that kind of thing. But they rent too. Yeah, there's a lot of people moving to the area.
And that's a little different than our residential market, where those higher end properties will take longer, and there's a smaller buyer pool. It sounds like the renter pool is just fine with.
Maybe they can't quite afford it, but they still want it.
And the people and the people who are renting these, are they medical type people, professional people moving here, retirees? What do you see in that particular part of the market?
Yeah, it's all across the board, a huge medical community for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's people moving here from, all parts of the state, all parts of the country. Just, it's a great place to live. So so people want to live here. And in some cases to them, this is, a very affordable rent. I mean, for us, it's kind of astronomical. But So things are moving.
I was down in Pasadena at the Oregon State UCLA game a couple of weeks ago, and we were driving around. Me and my 4 college roommates. We were driving around looking at property. Can you believe that? That's the funniest thing. That's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I've been on trips with you.
So we stopped at this one beautiful place in the neighborhood and say, "Well, what do you think that's worth?" So let's call the agent. I'm thinking, well, if it was around here, $1.5 million, 1.7. $6.5 million was the price for this place. So you go, whoa, you think our market is crazy.
Yeah.
Those still California markets are crazier, and that's why they come up here and do these things. And whether they rent for a while before they buy, whatever, they can do those things. There's a big market of it.
We walk past probably $250 million worth of property from the stadium to the Rose Bowl parade.
Oh, yeah.
Pete drags me to every year we go.
I think the difference in those markets is the wages.
Everything
our
is
wages
different about it.
It doesn't quite match up
but
here.
You can see why we are such a desirable place to live.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of rules. I know you guys got lots of rules, and I know you want to go over some for just reminders for people, renters and landlords that do this. Okay, let's talk about service animals. Now, the rule, the way I understand it, right, is that if you have a service animal and you don't allow pets in your house, you have to take a service animal if the renter has that. Is that correct?
That is correct. And you cannot collect a deposit. So I think most owners are really afraid to, ask questions about it. You can definitely misstep with certain questions. So, I'm hoping to kind of clarify some of that.
Okay.
A question that I had recently was, is there a difference between a companion animal and a service animal? We kind of use those terms interchangeably.
Okay.
They are different things. You can use the terms interchangeably. You're not going to get in trouble there. Yeah. A service animal is actually certified, has gone through a training program of some sort. Companion animal can just be, an animal that has been maybe prescribed by the doctor, doesn't have the specific training. So basically, as a landlord, you want to require some kind of identification, the prescription or the service animal certification. You can surely ask for that and not just assume that somebody just says it's a service animal to try and kind of get out of the deposit issue.
So, stop for a second. Have you seen that happen? Have you experienced that where people have tried to sneak by and get a dog into a house that's not supposed to have one because of that?
Well, I think that a lot of people use it as just kind of an easy way to, not have to pay the deposit or over-explain the pet.
Or if it's a no pet.
Exactly.
No pet. No,
exactly. Yeah, that's the big one there. But they're going to be prepared with some kind of prescription. Like I said, it's pretty easy to get these days. But
so if someone came to you guys with that and said, "Look, we have a we run a rental here, blah blah. We have a service dog or a companion dog." You then are going to say to them
that we need to see,
right? Right?
Just like any other, reference, financial, rental reference. We check everything. So that would be, one of the things we would check. And they need to have
either that the dog has gone through the service training, right? Mm-hmm. Or you said, or a prescription from a doctor.
Yeah, or medical professional.
Or medical professional that is a companion dog, and you can use them interchangeably.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I didn't know that.
Do they have to declare that on the application up front?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not an issue of now I've got my tenancy. By the way, I have a service animal.
Well, they can bring one in later.
If I'm in and I come into you 3 months later and say I now have a companion dog, but you're going to see, okay, let me just see your prescription or your thing. Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, if you're going to get around that, has it been an issue at all? kind of thing?
No, I mean, really, that was kind of the next point that I was going to get to is, it's still an animal maybe causing damage to the property. So it's really important to have them sign an addendum to that effect. Here's the rules. They're still, adhering to the same, don't tether the animal. Don't, let it go around running around biting people, causing damage, that kind of thing. So you can, have rules for that pet. You do have to be careful if you do have to, write a notice, or if there is some kind of, violation. You have to be really careful about how you go about that, because it's not a pet; it is a service animal. So the rules are a little bit different there. But one of the main points I do want to make is that you cannot inquire as to the disability, and I think that's where people get really freaked out, is because can I ask for a prescription? If I'm asking for the prescription, does it mean that I'm asking what the disability is? So it is kind of gray. So yeah, you definitely don't want to inquire as to why the person has the animal. That's a big no-no. You can definitely ask for identification showing that it is, rather than just a pet.
Well, that makes sense. That you don't do that. That would be kind of bad, wouldn't it?
Trust but verify.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that's exactly what you have to do. But because people, love their pets, and but a pet, Joe, remember, that is not a companion dog unless you have some sort of a medical advice. So I got to think about that with Phil. In the future, they're your dog.
Well, yeah, I couldn't work without him. So
they're companions.
He'd be grandfathered in.
I find somebody write me a prescription or something for that. Anyway,
we wouldn't want to deal with you if you took your puppies away.
We're with one more segment on the Real Estate Show today. We're with Danielle Roberts and Hillary Rufai of Sterling West Property Management. We're coming right back to the Real Estate Show right after this. The Real Estate Show rolls on KMED this Thanksgiving weekend 2016. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you. Hope your Thanksgiving weekend is continuing to be a joyful one, right? There's still, so much to give thanks, isn't there, in our country? I mean, I know we've had a lot of divisions in an election and all that kind of thing, but, it's still an amazing place.
We bring a lot of that on ourselves, and maybe we should just get past all that. And you're right. We should really reflect on the good that abounds all around us.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't win. Sometimes you don't. You win what you want, and disappointed. Politics is an interesting thing.
And baseball was that way too.
It's a contact sport. It's
really irritating.
Yeah, it's a contact sport. And boy, it's not for the meek.
No.
I'll tell you that. I tried it once. It's not for the meek. I'll tell you that. Anyway, today here on the Real Estate Show, we're talking property management with Danielle Roberts and Hillary Rufai from Sterling West Property Management here on the Real Estate Show, and they've been with our guests before, and it's great to hear the kinds of things that are going on in the rental market. And so far today, we 1.3%. Hillary says is the vacancy rate. Boy, that is really tight. Their rents are going up. Be careful. Try to get what I love what you two are doing. Seriously, Danielle, is that you have made the decision that you want your landlords and your renters to have at least a 1-year lease.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing that you guys are suggesting and advising, rather than go on a month-to-month tenancy. And I don't blame you. That's really good.
I think it protects everybody.
Yeah. So those are the kind of things that are out there. We know there's high demand, and there's still a lot going on out there. What should years ago when we started our show, there was a really big issue of foreclosures, rental properties that were foreclosed, and people were forced out of their homes that they were living in.
Waves of people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Is that still happening, Danielle? What's going on with that today?
We do still see a little bit of it, not as much. Even when I first started in property management, I saw it a lot more. But I still see it a little bit now. And I even recently had one of the gals from Channel 10 News call because she was doing a story on somebody who was being forced out of their home, which kind of brought me to relook at all of my laws and notes that I already knew. But something that a lot of people don't know, first of all, as a tenant, if you come home and there's foreclosure paperwork on the door, first off, you don't need to panic, because it's a long process.
Long process, yes.
And it really doesn't change anything for you at this point. So a lot of people immediately try to exit. They
I got to find
panic.
a new place now.
Right.
I got to pack and go. Right.
And they really don't have to. So the law states that once the sale has gone through, you're required a 90-day notice. So
once the sale has gone closed, in other words, once it's closed, okay.
So you have a long time even getting up to the sale, and then you have another 90 days.
Yeah, you got a long time sometimes. Okay.
So that's number one. I do want to say that in order to be protected by this law, you do have to be in a signed rental agreement. There's a lot of verbal agreements. There's a lot of, moms and sons and those kinds of things. You're not protected. So you have to be in a signed, legitimate rental agreement.
Even with your children, correct? If you're renting to your kids. Remember
Absolutely.
that's so important.
Absolutely.
We always have
Sometimes
our rule
even
here.
more important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Joe, what's our rule? Never
Co-sign
co-sign with your children.
That's
Okay, that's good.
absolutely true.
Absolutely true. Okay,
Absolutely
you
true.
remember that. Good. Okay.
Here's the other thing that a lot of renters have a hard time wrapping their brains around is you still have to pay rent.
Well, it's in foreclosure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whatever the owner is doing with their money is none of your business. Your business is paying your rent on the property that you are living in. And if you don't, you can be evicted, just like any other normal process. The one thing that a lot of renters don't know that I think is really important is that once the sale goes through, the new owner of the property is not entitled to pay you the security deposit that you've put on your property. That's the old owner's responsibility. There's no kind of change of hands because sometimes it's a bank, whatever the circumstance is. But what a renter can do as soon as they
Changes ownership.
Well, before they change ownership, as soon as they know that this property is going into foreclosure, they can write a letter to their landlord, their property management company, whoever it is. It's got to be a 30-day notice asking that their security deposit be applied to their current rent. So then they're safe. Their money is being spent on their rent. They're not going to lose it during this whole process. And then they'll get a 90-day notice.
Because otherwise, in a foreclosure, good luck with that security deposit.
Exactly.
You're going to lose it. Absolutely.
So you
be smart
should
with
definitely do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes the most sense.
Yeah, and it still
good
happens,
stuff.
but not as much. That's good news. That's good news to hear as well. It gets more people there. Hillary, wintertime is here, and the weather has obviously changed a lot. And after when Jim Eisenstan was here from Belfour, we talked about all the damages that can go on in homes, and I think rentals are just kind of vulnerable so much. What do you see in winter? What do you see in winter that really is a problem that the renters or landlords need to take care of it mostly at this time?
Yeah, winter is a really scary time because you have to trust that your tenant is going to, keep you as a manager or an owner informed if something weird is happening. And things can turn really fast. I think mainly, most property owners know what you need to do in the winter. Clean the gutters, make sure to winterize your sprinkler system, cover the spigots, that kind of thing. That's all easy. It's more of, communicating what the expectations are to the tenant, making sure they're holding up their end of the bargain, protecting the property. Also, a big thing is you don't want your tenant to endanger themselves while doing that. So, making sure to decide, what do I want to do as an owner, what do I want the tenant to be responsible for? You don't want your tenant up on the roof when it's icy, trying to clean the gutters or, fixing something. So, just kind of laying down, here's the expectations. I'm going to be doing this. If you could make sure to do this, and then, hopefully everything's protected. And then, during the year in general, making sure that the tenant tells you when something's wrong. I think most tenants are afraid that they'll be charged. And, it can get bad fast.
Well, the tenant gets charged if they let it go without
exactly.
telling you.
Right.
They don't know that a lot of the time. So communication is key.
You don't want to do that. Well, you look what we learned a whole lot today, and it's just as crazy as the residential market is. It's pressure on prices, high demand, low inventory.
Yeah, exactly.
And people, trying to find things and can't, looking. They parallel, but right now, as we go into the winter months, the most interesting thing is that this may be a time to look if you've been looking, because there seems to be a little more inventory out there right now because of the holidays.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
That's a good thing. How can we find you guys, by the way, at Sterling West? Danielle, people want to look up your website and stuff like that and see what you've got.
SterlingWestRentals.com is our website. We're located inside the John L. Scott Real Estate office, so you can find us there.
And did you open an office in Ashland?
We do. We have an Ashland.
You did, didn't you?
We have an office over on 4th Street in Ashland.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I bet the rental market in Ashland is as different as the real estate market is between Ashland and Medford.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah, you think?
Absolutely, yes.
It's different, but still, the same amount of demand. It's people love Ashland, so lots of people looking.
I don't know why that is. It's just kind of the way the world goes, doesn't it? Well, thank you all for being here. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
And
Great show. Thank you.
We got rentals are part of the real estate market. We got to treat them that way. And thank goodness we have people like Danielle and Hillary here to help both the landlords and the tenants do it the right way, and you guys do it great. So thanks for being here. That'll do it for the Real Estate Show this Thanksgiving weekend. For Pete and Joe, have a great weekend, everybody. God bless you all, and we'll see you next Saturday right back here on KMED.
You've been listening to The Real Estate Show on KMED Radio, presented by the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, along with John L. Scott Real Estate of Southern Oregon and Bank 34 Mortgage. For guest contact information, download our free app, or to watch a past show, visit us online at realestateshowOregon.com. This show is produced by Table Rock Productions. Join us again next weekend for Southern Oregon's one and only Real Estate Show on KMED. And thank you for making the Real Estate Show part of your weekend.